Music is a very prevalent and powerful thing in society and has been since pretty much the dawn of time. So much so that no matter anybody's individual interests, cultures, creeds, religions, regions, or lifestyles, music is bound to make an appearance in everyone's life, whether they realize it or not. That is one of the reasons why music is often referred to by many as the universal language. Specifically, American music has a much deeper and richer history than many even consider, largely due to America's age. While America is a very young country, especially compared to the truly ancient nations that have devised some of the most elegant and widely respected music, America has still produced quite a bit of music throughout its history that has made a great impact in its own right. Many of these largely prolific genres are all tied to each other in one way or another. The reason why I believe I'm at least a little bit qualified to speak on this topic of the histories of American music genres and how they're all intrinsically tied together is because I spent my entire time in high school and middle school studying music in a broader sense, with 1 year in high school with more of a specific focus on the history of American music itself. The three genres and their links that I intend to analyze and discuss are American country, rock, and pop music. American country music, as it's known today, would not have been at all possible if it weren't for the success of jazz and the blues that came before it. Jazz music was first developed and really rose to prominence in New Orleans in 1895. That summer, Charles Bolden formed his own band after performing with Charlie Galloway's string band the year prior. Bolden's musical talent and natural charisma brought his band a lot of fame, effectively paving a way for jazz to take root in the city for over a century to come, and his success also brought many prominent icons such as Louis Armstrong and many other very prominent names that ended up defining the genre. It also gave rise to a lot of musical neighborhoods that had a lot of influence in the musical landscape of America, from New Orleans uptown to New York's Tin Pan Alley. The popularity of jazz in its early conception allowed it to thrive and then further evolve down the road, because much like languages, in order for a genre of music to not die out, it must be adaptable and willing to change in little ways over time in order to remain relevant. A subgenre that eventually sprang off of jazz in this evolution was blues. The blues were identifiable with their very soulful and rich sounds with very emotional and agonizing themes. Jimmie Rodgers' yodeling country sprang from this Jimmie Rodgers' yodeling country sprang from the scat style of jazz singing, which was very improvisational and much like the yodeling country genre, while as the more heartfelt country singing that is widely popular of Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton, Hank Williams, Merle Haggard, the Carter Family, Patsy Cline, Willie Nelson, and many more to come throughout the years, built their more emotional and heartfelt songs from the soulful agony that was in blues, and many of those prominent artists like the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin. Early rock also developed much from that blues influence that caused the explosion of country music, with many artists who would soon be some of the most prolific artists in not just rock, but in all of music history, covering famous blues songs. Sadly, though, many times these covers would overshadow the original and often black artists who performed the song as a blues hit, with the record labels of the time intentionally trying to steer audiences away from and discredit African American artists. One very infamous case of racial overshadowing by a rocker performing a massive blues hit is Elvis's rendition of Hound Dog. Hound Dog was originally performed and recorded by African American female rhythm and blues singer Ellie Mae Thornton in 1952. Elvis then went on to tweak the song into more of a rock and roll sound and released it in the summer of 1956, where it stood until the end of his life on April 16, 1977, as his longest-running number one hit, sitting at the top at that spot for a total of 11 weeks. With that being one of Elvis's first majorly successful hits, his fame and prominence left the original artist and her affiliation with the song largely forgotten to history. Another rock song with heavy blues and country influences was Carl Perkins's Blue Suede Shoes, which is yet another song that is largely affiliated with Elvis's megalodon of a career. But once again, Elvis had only really performed a cover of it. Carl Perkins recorded the massive hit in 1955, and it is considered one of the first records of its kind to include such strong influences of both the blues and country genres in the time. Elvis recorded his version of the song the following year and subsequently released it as the opening track to his debut album released on September 8, 1956. The rock age gave rise to some great celebrity that of its kind hadn't been seen before. While Elvis most certainly had more than his share of an incredible and almost cult-like following, the real insanity of modern celebrity and pop music didn't come about until the cultural explosion that was the British invasion in the rock age. The period known as the British invasion was a time when a large influx of bands and musicians were coming to the States from Great Britain and completely selling out tours about as soon as they hit the soil. Some of the most prominent stars to come out of this era were and still are the band Queen and their lead singer Freddie Mercury, Elton John, the Rolling Stones and their lead singer Mick Jagger, and finally, and quite possibly the most prominent, the Beatles with Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and George Harrison. All of these artists were so popular that it often brought an element of danger to what they did. A famous example of this danger was the shooting and murder of John Lennon on December 8, 1980. This was some 10 years after the deformation of the band, but still their fame was strong. An overly zealous fan whose residence was in Hawaii flew to John Lennon's residence called the Dakota in New York City and shot and killed him right outside the front entrance, ending his life. The killer was also apparently reading Catcher in the Rye, still on the scene, waiting for the police to arrest him. The killer's motivation for killing Lennon were related to his lifestyle and political and opinionated statements he had made before the date in question. These facts really mirror the dangers modern pop music celebrities face today. For example, on May 22, 2017, someone planted a bomb outside the Manchester Arena hosting an Ariana Grande concert in London. Christina Grimmie, who had risen to fame from the American singing competition The Voice, was shot and killed backstage at her own concert, I believe, in the same year. There have been countless cases of these acts of violence towards pop singers, and a lot of the quote-unquote causes, or more accurately excuses, of the perpetrators have much to do with the celebrity of the artist, much of which first occurred in the U.S. to that extent during the British invasion of the 1960s and 70s. So as you can clearly see, all music is connected in one way or another, whether it be from the actual style of the music written or from the celebrity that arises from it. American music has such a deep and rich history that it would be difficult to not find any traces between all the genres that came before what we have today. And because all music is connected in such a way, no matter what you identify as your taste in music, the odds are that whatever you most listen to owes its existence to something that came before, even if they don't seem too obviously connected. All it takes is a deeper look.